Hello everybody, Benjamin Magnus here, aka the Dapper Gamer, and I'm going to be doing another one of my quick tip how-to videos on how to get into orbit in Kerbal Space Program. I decided to do a two-stage rocket setup here because anybody would have access to this setup very early on in the game without having to actually have gotten into orbit before this. You could just get the science required for something like this by flying around Kerbin suborbitally. I was originally going to use the other spacecraft I made in my previous episode that had the serial engine configuration, and there will be a link to this video in the description below and at the end of the episode. The serial engine configuration with the interconnected fuel tanks with the fuel transfer pipes, but those fuel transfer pipes are a little way down the tech tree, so I decided to do it with a simpler configuration. This is just a very standard two-stage rocket. These two will go, and then this one will go, and now I'm going to blast off. And first things first is I'm going to show you how not to do this. This is the way I used to do it when I first started playing this game, and while it does work, it is not of the optimal efficiency. Alright, here we are after our first stage has been decoupled, and what I'm going to show you is how I used to do this all the time. And basically what I did is I just went straight up into the atmosphere until I got to a apoapsis here that was above 70,000 meters, and I'm almost there, so let's get to about 80, and then we'll cut our engines down. Now, what I used to do is exactly what I just did. I would just go straight up, straight up, straight up until I exited the atmosphere, and then what I would do is I would come over here and I would just set up a quick maneuver like this. See that? And then what I would do is I'd get here and I'd set up another maneuver. You always basically want to burn when you're on the near side of the apoapsis. If you start burning when you're on the far side and you've started your descent, you are going to be burning more fuel than you necessarily would have needed to do the same kind of maneuver if you did it on the near side of the apoapsis. So just a little tip is always start your burn when you're on the near side of the apoapsis here. And we don't need this, we can get rid of that now. I'm just going to speed this up a little bit till we're closer to the apoapsis, and then I'm going to show you what I would do next. Just get all the way up here till we're just a few seconds away from it, and we're almost there. We're out of the atmosphere, so we are outside of the atmospheric drag of the planet. And then what I would do is I would just point over 90 degrees like this, and I would do another burn. This will work, especially early on in the game when you don't have anything really complicated, any of the complex spacecrafts kind of unlocked. It will definitely work to do it this way. And if you start drifting too close to the apoapsis, you could just push your nose up a little bit, and you'll move away from it a little bit. But you want to do this burn as close as you can to it without going past it, basically. So just kind of finagle your way here and there. And the key to an orbit is a very high speed of about 2,200 meters per second. And it's starting to drift away, so we'll get closer to it. Basically what an orbit is you are falling down towards the planet, but you're falling so fast that you just never hit it. That's basically what orbiting is. And we're going to keep going, see what we can get here. Alright, we got a little bit of an orbit starting to work, but we moved away from the apoapsis, so we're going to get closer to it again. Get a little bit closer to it and start our engines back up, and that's that. We just ran out of fuel. So I used 3 big fuel tanks and 3 engines in a 2-stage rocket, and I got kind of into orbit doing it that way. This side, the apoapsis here on this side is in an orbit, but over here, we're not. 36,000 meters, we're going to re-enter the atmosphere, we're going to have that atmospheric drag, and the orbit's going to degrade and we're going to hit the planet. So now I'm going to use the exact same spacecraft, but I'm going to get into orbit in a more efficient manner. Okay, here we are with our exact same spacecraft, and this time we're going to do things a little bit differently. This time what we're going to do is when we hit a certain point, we are going to start turning off to the side rather than going straight up. That way what we're going to be doing is using our force, our thrust, to push ourselves in a more of a horizontal trajectory rather than a vertical trajectory. That way we're not getting up to the high point in the orbit and then having all that speed being bled off as we slow down. So we're getting to the point. I like to do it about 300 meters per second once I got a good amount of speed, and just start pushing off to the side here. And the direction you just start to push your orbit, your nose, is going to influence which way you're orbiting. And there go our engines. If you push off to the side here to the 90-degree mark, you're going to get into a regular equatorial orbit. If you push the other way, you'll get into a retrograde orbit, so opposite of the direction of the planet. Or if you go north to south, you'd get a polar orbit. So as you can see, we're pushing off to the side here. You want to get to about the halfway point here between 0 and 90 degrees, so about 45 degrees right there. So you want to get there. You just want to build up a lot of speed. And Bob Kerbin's having a blast down here. What I do is I get to, this starts to say orbit. It'll switch pretty soon to an orbital speed, and that's when I'm going to go take a look at my, oh, there it goes right there. So we're going to cut our engines, and we're going to take a look at our orbital map. Now we have plenty of altitude here, and as you can see, instead of coming out like this and then going straight down, it's kind of pushed off to the side. Now what we're going to do is we're going to wait till we get to the apoapsis, and we're going to do our second burn again. And if you were paying attention before, when we got to the apoapsis on our first attempt, our speed fell basically down to 0. Because we were basically, it's like throwing a rock straight up, and then it gets to the top and it's barely moving at all, and then it starts to speed back up on the way down. That means we wasted a lot of fuel building up a lot of speed just to have it bled off as we moved up. But this way, with that long, more elliptical course, we're not going to bleed off nearly as much speed. So let's just speed this up here till we get near our apoapsis. And as you can see, we're losing speed, but not nearly as much, which is what is important. And as you remember what I said before, is orbiting is all about speed, because you're basically just falling back down towards the planet just really, really, really fast, so you never hit it. All right, here we go. And we're doing our second burn to try to push out our orbit. And if you remember last time, we used up all of our fuel, but we did not get a successful orbit. We got almost a successful orbit. And what you need is about 2,200 meters per second. I'm actually going to cut this now, because if you burn right near the apoapsis, you'll get a nice circular orbit. If you burn off to the side, your orbit will kind of get a little more elliptical. And generally what you want is a nice circular orbit. Those are pretty stable, and they're also pretty efficient. So we're gonna get back to our apoapsis, point to our prograde indicator, and do another little burn. And there we go. We are at a very stable orbit. It's a little bit more elliptical than I wanted. We're at 135,000 meters here. We're at 109,000 meters here, but it's relatively circular, and it is perfectly stable. We could orbit here all for the rest of eternity and never degrade it. Let's take a look at our staging section, and we still have some fuel left. So that now you can clearly see that doing it this way is much more fuel efficient. Because now I have fuel left to do something else. Now, I don't have enough fuel to, say, get to the moon, but I'm using a very, very basic rocket configuration. So more engines in different configurations and more stages, or using the fuel pipes like I did in my last episode, would be even more efficient and leave you with more speed to go do something else. And as a little addendum here to the end, I could show you how to just easily re-enter the atmosphere without having to plot maneuvers or anything like that. And all you need to do is, and this is going off what I said before about orbiting basically just being falling really fast. If you start to fall slower, then you will re-enter the atmosphere. So all you need to do is find your retrograde indicator, which is opposite of the direction of travel. So we're going this way, but we're facing this way. And all you need to do is burn a little bit. So you reduce your speed instead of gaining your speed. And if you saw the screen flip around like that, that means we're no longer in a stable orbit, and we are, in fact, going to re-enter the atmosphere. We'll just burn off the rest of our fuel. There it goes. And now when we take a look, we are in a course plotted back to Kerbin. We're going to re-enter the atmosphere and not splash down, but we'll hit the land over here. This is I do have a parachute on this guy because I am using the same save file as my current playthrough, so I don't want to waste any money. I don't have to. But there you go. That is how to get into orbit as efficiently as possible. And again, to reiterate, you don't want to go straight up and then push out. You want to start pushing out when you hit about 250 or 300 meters per second. Just start pushing your nose over to the side, because what you want to do is look at I keep calling it a gyroscope down here. You're going to go straight up until you get to that key speed, and then you're going to want to push over till you get to about this about 45 degrees over, or this 270 degree marker right there. And then when you're at your apoapsis and you need to do the second burn, you want to face just like that. Alright, and there we go. That is how to get into orbit stably and efficiently, and a little addition on the end there, how to degrade your orbit to re-enter the atmosphere. So, if you have any other ideas of anything else involving Kerbal Space Program you would like to know how to do, just leave it in a comment down below and I'll try to get to it as soon as possible. Don't forget to drop a like, and if you're interested in more, Benjamin Magnus shows you how to do things in Kerbal Space Program. Subscribe to my channel and I'll see you next time.